Welcome to Find It. I'm Debbie Bettendorf, and I have a very special guest on tonight. Mr. Doug Wing is here with us, and he's going to talk a little bit about his book and life. He's going to help us find a few things, hopefully. So, Lynn, bring his intro on up, and I'll bring him up next. Welcome, Doug Wing, to Find It, to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Hey, thank you, Debbie. It is a pleasure to be here on this show. And man, what an introduction. That's cool.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time. So yeah, I popped this up in it right before your intro, Giant Success by Doug Wing. I want you to give our audience a background of why you wrote this book, who the book is about, and why they should get it. Or maybe I'll tell them why they should get it, because I love this book. Why did you write the book, Doug?
Well, at first I was like, okay, I found this manuscript when my father passed away. I found a manuscript. We were cleaning out his house, and it was, really probably only 2 or 3 chapters that he had written. It's kind of a history of his life. And I was a little intrigued by it, and I thought, wow, this is cool. And I asked my siblings, I said, are any of you interested in this? And they're like, no, we're just going to throw it away. So I didn't know why I wanted it, but I wanted it. Wow. I kept it, and I kept it for like 7 or 8 years, really. It sat in my office. I just kept looking at it, and then I just kept having these little feelings like, this would be kind of a cool history for our family. Maybe you should write just kind of a history about Dad, and maybe a book about him. So that's kind of how it started. But then after my father passed away, all these people came up to us and came up to me and were telling me these stories about his generosity, the way he gave people opportunities, the way he was as a boss. And I saw a lot of that because I worked for him since I was 10 until I was 55. So I had this incredible, all these stories and all these eyewitness things that I saw. But then as I started to do the book, it turned into maybe a little bit of a short history about his life, but more of, okay, these are the core principles and values that Hal Wing used to build an incredible company, a hugely successful company. And if you will learn these principles, these values, and put it into your own life, whether it's in a business or a family or a marriage, whatever it is, it will help you no matter what. If you treat people this way, if you do this with honesty, with integrity, and you give people chances and opportunities and do these things, not only will you be hugely successful, but you will help other people to be successful. So that's kind of how the whole thing happened. And I was I'm not going to say I was totally surprised when the book came out on his birthday and it went immediately to #1 on Amazon. And I say that the only reason why had nothing to do with me. All I did was put the book together, but it is because of Hal Wing and the things, the teachings, the principles, the wonderful things that are in that book as to why it went #1.
Very well said. And I will say this, I read the entire book, and I loved that it's almost like a guideline. It isn't really, but it for me, it was almost like a guideline for business and life. Mm-hmm. I loved at the end of every chapter where it had like a summary, almost like, here's a recap for what you just read. And here are the little how-tos, which I loved. It was how to, but I would have said his name was Hal. So I would have said HAL too, how to's, but it was really cool. And I'm going to read this. This is one of my absolute favorite quotes from your father, Hal Wing, which by the way, who's listening, everyone who's listening, we didn't really say what the name of the company was. So the name of the company is Little Giant Ladder Company. So if you look in your garage, you guys may have the best ladder on the planet. His dad founded and made that into a huge success. But your father wrote, if you concentrate on building a business and not the man, you will not achieve. But if you concentrate on building the man, you will achieve both. And I just thought that's, I mean, man or woman, right? We got
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
work on ourselves and then everything else seems to work out. But he had amazing work ethic too. It's a great book. You guys really need to get it. But yeah, so this company that he built, could you tell us a little bit about that and where it actually started?
Yeah. So what's interesting about the company is he said, I built this company. I started this company just so that I could work with my family. And then he said, all of a sudden, all these other people came and needed jobs. And a lot of times I didn't have a job, but I kind of created one for them. But so we were living in Germany in the 70s. And my dad was a great salesman, was always a good salesman, was selling life insurance, was very successful. A friend of his who was also working for the same life insurance company saw the little giant ladder that was, it wasn't called Little Giant then, but it was called a Waku, Waku. And it was made by a guy that was a house painter. He invented it. And, the Germans are great engineers, but he saw this ladder, he got excited, and he kept just hounding my dad until my dad saw the ladder. And then my dad was like, I think we can do something with this. So my dad took one of the ladders, purchased it. We went back to America. My dad quit his job. He went out and pre-sold an entire container of ladders. And then here's the funny thing, when the ladders all arrived, um, everybody bailed on my dad. He had a list of everybody on a legal pad. Everybody made an excuse. Oh, I'm going through a divorce, or I lost my
Mhm.
job, or my son's sick or whatever. And so my dad had to go out and resell all of the ladders. And he did that by going door to door, business to business. And then he came up with a script, a demonstration, sales close, answers to objections. And he started traveling and selling ladders door to
That
door.
is the coolest thing. And you think about it, door to door. I mean, these days if someone would come to your door, it'd be like, "What is happening?" Because we have all these,
Yeah.
platforms on social media and commercials and all of that. So I love all of the stories that are in the book too about how he would just the grit your father had. It and the work ethic and the zest for life. All of those stories are just so incredible. Um, can you share with us one of your favorite exciting zest of life type of vibes that experiences that you got um, by watching your father or experienced with your father over the years? What's one of your favorite, like, oh, the zest for life is a lot?
Well, there's so many of them, but yeah, I can share one or two, but one would be fine. But one thing about my dad is that he, as you mentioned, he just had this incredible work ethic, incredible self-belief,
Yeah.
and then he never gave up. He never quit. Man, and there were so many chances, so many opportunities for my dad to just give up. I mean, it all started. I would say it started with when he went to his first trade show. The two brothers of Warner Ladder Company, the largest ladder company in the world, walk up to my dad, get right in his face, and laugh at him and said, "Wing, you are a complete fool. There's no way you're ever going to be successful with this product. You're nuts. You are going to fail." And my dad said, when those guys walked off that day, I was super motivated. And that was really one of the fuels, that just lit me up. And I was going to prove to these guys, plus the fact that my dad had 7 kids and
Mhm.
my mom to feed. And so, yeah, 7 kids and him and my mom's mouse to feed. But he said that was a huge, huge motivation for me. The irony of that whole story was those guys tried to buy my dad 4 times, because not only did my dad succeed, I mean, he succeeded unbelievably
Mhm.
well, and they kept trying to buy my dad's company, and he said, "There's no way I would ever sell to those
No.
guys."
Of
And
course. Of course it was
but
successful, and of course they wanted it.
yeah, but one thing that was really, really interesting is I met one of those brothers when he was retired And this was in South Florida, in Palm Beach area, where he was retired. I was at a trade show, and this guy walks up, and he introduced himself, shook my hand, said, "My name's Don Warner, and I want to tell you how much I admired your father."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And then he said, "And I'm going to tell you something, but if you ever repeat it and anybody asks me, I will deny it." But he said, "The only ladder I have in my house is a little giant ladder."
I love that story. And
Yeah.
by the way, Mr. Warner, we're just gonna announce it on a podcast. So
Yeah.
it's
And
no big
so,
deal. He can just deny it all he wants.
yeah, but he was a nice guy. He just said, "I had total respect for your
Well,
father,"
sure.
And
And the stories that I've read in the book and also with having you on with Lynn, Serrano and I on the last one, we really delved into the personality that was your father and, how he managed and how he the integrity that he had. So it's not surprising that, for one, it's not surprising that the company went really well because he wouldn't have invested his soul and life into a product that wasn't any good to begin with. So he
Mhm.
believed in what he was selling. Then he also believed in himself. And he grew this company like ginormous, which then you were co-owner of until when was that?
20
2014,
two- 2000 and
15,
2019. Yeah.
19. Oh, wow. Okay. So then now, so you're like retired from that.
Hmm.
But then you're also, I want to talk a little bit more about you because you're co-founder of the Boar Investment Company.
Hmm.
You collect cars, you're writing books, and I hear you're on your way to writing another one. I want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of good things that have happened. I mean, I'll tell you what, I learned so much working with my father, for my father, and then when my father passed, and even before that, my brother and I ended up. One thing I loved about my dad is that he slowly, ever so slowly, made sure that we knew everything about the company, every facet of the company, and then he would give us a little bit more
Mhm.
responsibility. And so he made us earn it. He gave us opportunities and would give us more opportunities and responsibilities. And then we kept growing until eventually my brother and I took over the company. And then we continued to grow the business
Yeah.
with the help of some amazing employees. There's no way we could have done this without them. And then I decided to step away. And then my brother and I sold the business, and then I got involved in some other things, like you mentioned. I was involved, got involved with multifamily housing and other businesses in Utah, Idaho, and some up in Washington State. But those all do well and are run by my partners. And then I went into the book thing, and then that turned into public speaking and talking about the book and the story. And then, like
Wait a
in
minute. I saw you were speaking at a school.
yeah,
And you, was it elementary age? Is that what it
yeah.
was?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I went up to Utah. I had actually, it was just all worked out that there were
Yeah.
3 speaking opportunities, and then a book signing in Utah. So my first school that I spoke to was a 3rd grade class in Cedar City, Utah. And I was blown away by these kids because the teacher actually bought the book and then they all read it together and talked about it as a class.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, 3rd grade. And then so the teacher said, "I'd like you to come to class and ask them what they learned from the book." And so I walk into the classroom, and these kids were like clapping and everything, and their eyes were all lit
Oh,
up. And so I'll never forget. He said, I asked him, I introduced myself and told him a little bit about me. And then I said, "What, by show of hands, what have you learned from the book?" And this cute little girl raises her hand and she said, "I learned that patience is a waste of time." And I thought she was going to stop right there. And she goes, "Meaning, Mr. Wing, that when you have an opportunity, you jump on it immediately." And I'm thinking, this girl's in 3rd grade.
she's got it.
And she's got it down to where, that Hal Wing was so good at that. When he saw something and there was an opportunity there, man, he did not wait. He just, boom, he went after it immediately. And that's what we talk about, that patience is a waste of time.
I
It
love it.
is you go and you go after it immediately, right? and you capture that opportunity. So, and then all these other kids are raising their hands, and then, you know, I said, well, what if I tell you a story that's not in the book? And I told them a little story, and they were so excited. And then we took pictures afterwards, and it was just cool. And then then a couple of days later, I spoke to a sixth grade class, and that was very impressive as well. And then I spoke to 275 men and women of law enforcement with the West Valley
Wow.
City Police Department. I mean, that was the biggest group I'd ever spoke to, and then I did my book signing. But it was a couple of weeks ago. What a wonderful, great time I had doing all these things, and it's just been remarkable, this journey.
You
So
know, when you're talking about being with third graders and the teacher and the kids are reading it and they got something from it, you know, I gotta say, when you read this book, it is when I read it, I thought this would be good for any age. It would be good for companies to purchase to
mhm.
help managers and supervisors or whatever to understand the value in managing truly and having that, you know, innate ability to connect with people, hear what they're saying. I really did think that this book could be like something a company could use it. But now listening to you talk about third graders, you know, what a great way. That is the cutest picture. What a great way to help kids who may not even get those core value lessons at home, maybe,
Yeah.
but then to have this brought into their life from their teacher and learn about how, you know, the integrity, the moral values in life that your father had and instilled in you. And then you then have taken all of those things that you've learned and put it in a book. I love it. It's amazing. It really is a great book. I'm telling you guys. I know I keep picking it up, but I mean, like, it's good. And then at the end, the summaries are amazing. So if you think you got what that chapter really means, at the end you get a summary and you're like, yep, check, I get it. You know, it's really cool. But so when we're talking about him, I have a question on here. I'm not even going to pop it up on the screen because I'm just going to, one of the questions I usually ask is, who was the most influential person in your life and why? So
Mhm.
I know who it is, right? Or should I not be so presumptuous? I'm assuming it's your father, but there could be more than one. So tell me, who has been the most influential person in your life and why?
I would say two people, perhaps three, but I would say probably there were two really influential people in my life. And of course, one was my dad. And people always ask me, what's the most important thing you ever learned from your dad? And I would say that he had 100% integrity in his life.
Mhm.
He always taught me by example, and also, by the way he lived his life. But he taught everyone, look, you can tell anybody you want to, anything you want to, customers, distributors, whoever, here at other employees at the company, as long as it's the
Mhm.
truth. So I think
Yeah,
that,
say anything you want, just say the truth. I
yeah.
love that
And
too.
so,
It's so easy, but it's so good.
yeah, another great quote too was, "Don't lie, don't steal, and don't be lazy." Right. So I had this dad that was just, I mean, the one thing that he had that was incredible was this unbelievable self belief in himself, and he said he got that from my grandmother.
Mm,
And so, no matter what happened during the company, and you can read in that book where there were times when the company almost went belly up. There was one
yes.
time that it did when he sold it, but there was one person there that always said, "We're going to make it." And that was Hal Wing. And there were people that were ready to quit and go look for other jobs. And my dad said, "Well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, but we will make it." And we did. And so he had this incredible, now he had to we all had to back it up with hard work, right? And do the
Mhm.
right things. But it does start with this incredible self belief. The other person that was
Wait,
really,
before you move to your next
yeah.
person, how do you have that self-belief, Doug?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
How do you think what I mean, you get I mean, you know, like he said, I think I got it from my grandmother, but I mean, part of it, I mean, is that something you think people just sometimes are born with? Or how do you think how do you have such a high belief in yourself? What have you had to work on that, or did that just kind of come naturally to you with the way you're raised with your dad?
Well, I think it comes to you because of it in two ways. I mean, one, yes, some of that rubbed off on me, but um, I honestly believe because my dad was that way, and and some of it rubbed off on me, that whatever I put my mind to, and I applied myself and
Mhm.
kept my attitude well, it would happen, that good things would happen. And not always, there's sometimes bad things happen, but no matter what, you would succeed. With my dad would say one thing that I really liked about him. He said the patience is a waste of time, but then he also said that life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so honestly, I think Hal Wing just, never gave up. And so eventually it's going to happen for you, but if you read through that book and look at all the times where the company was on the ragged edge,
Mhm.
man, he could have given up a couple of times, two or three times. He never did. And so I think just run that marathon, don't give up. But to answer your question, yes, I got some of that from my father. But the rest of it came as I looked at him and followed, his principles and values, and then just worked hard. And then it came by never giving up and having little wins. And then, a lot of little wins turned into big wins. And then that just builds your confidence, And so you just work on that, and you do that by also reading something positive every day, listening to podcasts, to Jim Rohn, man, we drove down the
To
road and
Debbie
we,
Bettendorf and
yeah,
Miss
exactly.
and Doug Wayne.
But you got to remember, growing up, this is what we listened to on cassettes, and we listened to 8 tracks. I listened to Zig Ziglar all the time when I was a teenager,
Mhm.
and Jim Rohn, and my dad would listen to all these motivational people. And then the other thing we listened to was country music. My dad was like big
Love
time
that
into
too.
Willie Nelson, Merle
Yeah.
Haggard, all these guys. But my dad was always reading positive books and listening to positive things, and he was a positive guy. And yes, I think that rubbed off on me, but I had to put it into my life and do the things that he did. And then the other guy that I never talk about was when I went on a mission at 18, 19 years old. People don't realize this, I was really shy. I couldn't talk to people, and I got called to go on a mission out in the Dakotas and to go knock on doors
Oh.
and talk to people about religion. I was
Were you
scared.
terrified?
Oh, I was
Yeah,
so scared.
for a shy person.
I was praying that people wouldn't open the doors, instead of, that they would open the doors so I could talk to them about, our church and
Oh,
our religion.
Doug.
But I learned so much in those 2 years, doing that. And one of the mentors I had was my mission president, who was a brigadier general in the Air Force. And this guy was just, I always heard that generals were mean, and this guy was one of the nicest guys in the world. But the way he was dressed immaculately. His hair was always combed, he was shaved. I mean, everything
Mhm.
about him, his shoes were polished.
It
Just
shines.
he was one of these guys that was so organized too. My dad was super organized. And so
Mhm.
from these two men, I learned so much. And that, I'm super OCD, I'm super organized. And I know I got that from both of these guys,
Mhm.
these men. And I might be over the top about this, but I try never to be late. I learned all these things, and it really served me well, growing up
Yeah.
in business, and just doing the little things, Yeah.
I can appreciate I love organization. Like, I get super excited about getting like, when I have a lot going on at once, and
Hmm.
then, things tend to get a little disarray, I just can't wait, so to go take a whole day just to get back where I need to be. I don't know, for me, it's just like it's refreshing. I like my space to be nice. I like to feel like everything is put where it needs to be, and I'm like that too, Doug, so I appreciate that. And when you talked about your dad and how he, and the other gentleman too, how they fed themselves good things. Like, when you listen to a podcast that's refreshing or
Hmm.
inspirational or whatever, and each day you read things or surround yourself with like-minded positive people, you're feeding your soul the good stuff. That makes total sense to me, Doug. I love
Yeah.
that. That's
Well,
amazing.
my mission president his name was Perry Greenwood, and he lived in Utah. But what was amazing is the first day I went on my mission, I'm scared, right? I'm scared to death. And he looks at me. I have a little interview with him, and he said, you need to learn everything you can as quickly as possible because you're going to be one of my leaders in the mission. And I was like, what the heck's a leader?
Leader. Oh my goodness.
And I was scared to death. And within 3 months, I was called to a really high calling, a high position of leadership. And I was in charge of missionaries that had been out over a year. And I was like brand new.
Wow.
And so I
Why do
learned,
you think that happened that way?
I guess he saw something in me, but anyway, and it really helped me to grow as a person, as a man, as an individual. But I learned so much from this guy. He was just so super organized. He was such a great guy. And so, quickly I was forced into this, and I grew like crazy. And so, yeah, it was a big deal in my life. It was really, really
That
important.
is a big deal. It really is. And I remember talking to you before on the Lynn and Debbie show. Um, you didn't have, I mean, you had a teacher say something to you, right? That really
Mhm.
upset you when you were so young, and it stuck with you.
Yep,
You know?
sophomore year in high school, I was in an AP. I got put in an English class with all these the smartest kids in school that were all doing the AP English stuff, and this teacher in front of the whole class told me I was an idiot, yeah, and that I would never amount to anything. And I really, to this day, I would love to see Miss McPolin. Her name was Miss McPolin,
We'll find her.
and I would
Now that I
love
got a name, I will find her.
yeah, I would love to see her and have lunch with her, and not to be mean to her or anything. I would just love to sign a book for her and say, "Hey, Miss McPullen, I turned out pretty good."
Do you tell her I found it? I found success.
Yeah,
I found happiness. Yeah. I love it. I love it. But I do remember you saying that, and it made my heart hurt a little bit because you were a sophomore and you still remember that. And that's what we have to also remember in life. Like, comments that we make and we say out loud to somebody, if it's negative,
mhm.
you really should keep it inside because people carry that and it means a lot, to people. It really can scar a person for a long time, especially for you when you were already shy and you're trying to come out of your shell. And then a teacher speaking to you that way, it's not going to want to make you participate. I mean, come
Well,
on.
one thing I always learned that I learned from my dad that I really loved was you praise in public and you discipline in private.
I
When it
love that.
when it came to his employees. And one thing that was really, really neat about my dad was if he ever did come down hard on you as an employee, which sometimes he did with me, he would do it in private, but then he always afterwards wasn't in that time when you got ripped on a little bit, chewed on you a little bit, but he always came back later and showed forth an increase of love to you later.
That's amazing.
So
Hey,
he would
Bob, I want
yeah,
to
so he would come back later, maybe the next day, maybe a couple hours later, and he would tell you, "This is why I talked to you about this." And then he would say, "I love you." And so he was just such an incredible man to where he would when you did deserve it. He didn't just pick on you for no reason. But I loved the fact that he would do it in private, and then afterwards he would come back and say, "I love you."
I like that too. And Doug, can you remember? Because in my head, and I know you're not a perfect person, none of us are, but I can't imagine you ever doing anything that would get you in trouble with your dad. Is there a time that you can share with us that you knew he was angry or disappointed in you when you were growing up?
Yes, I will, because my dad was super OCD, and this was when I was younger a little bit. I would say probably middle school, junior high, when I was a little bit sloppy, and my dad was in the he'd been in the military, and I mean, my dad's cars were immaculate. He looked immaculate. His buildings were immaculate. People are building ladders in this place and it's tidy, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I remember one time I got in trouble because my room was sloppy. My dad came down, my bed was made terribly, and my dad, he chewed on me pretty good. But then I remember later on that night, my dad came and said, "This is why I got after you. And this is important. You need to do this in your life." And then he, like I mentioned to you, he came back and he's like, "I will always love you. I'm your father. I love you."
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes, sometimes, I mean, I'm a religious guy, and I think that sometimes we have that chastisement maybe from God in the same way where, he kind of corrects us, but he always comes back afterwards and tells us, shows us that love afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they love us, and they want us to do our best and to be our best and to be like them.
Yeah, and it's a good lesson too as a parent because no one's a perfect parent either, right? So for us to, I learned along the way that if you do correct your kids, it's pretty important to also give them some praise about something else as well and always let them know that they're loved. So I can identify and appreciate what you're sharing on that note too with
Mm.
your dad. That makes that's go that's really good. I wanted to ask you, what experiences or life lessons have taught you how to find it in love, joy, success, or whatever you have found?
That's a good question. There is, hey Ken, as
Listen, your bestie. He's
there,
on here. Ken Walls.
yeah, hi Ken.
Hey, he's saying hey.
Ken's a great guy. You know that he's a wonderful guy. But yeah, let's go back to this question because
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people look at. I mean, people come to me sometimes. They're like, "You've had such an unbelievable life, and you've got all this money and success and everything."
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't realize that, what, I've had hard times too in life. It hasn't been easy. There have been times in my life where, I've had sadness. And difficulty. And one of those that I am, there's just a comment in there.
Notice how Doug sat up straight? Ha
Yeah,
ha. Sit up straight, young man. That was from D. Ken Walls. That's what your bestie's giving you. He's
yeah,
he's
and
he's
going back,
channeling Hal Wing right now,
exactly.
telling you to sit up straight.
And going back to this love joy thing, success and all that, is I in certain areas my life has been really super successful. In other areas, I'm still a work in progress, and so I'm still trying to do better and be better. And in one of those areas is in my relationships with, I've had several marriages that have gone bad, and in some of the instances maybe I haven't been the best at picking, right? But also, I'm not so proud or even arrogant to think that some of it hasn't been my fault either. So
Yeah.
you have to look at yourself and go, okay, what can I do now to, improve? And so there's room for improvement with Doug Wing in certain areas, in all areas really of his life. I mean, we can always do better. In fact, I was dating a gal probably, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And I thought this was a really fair question. She says, "You've been married, so many times." And she goes, I want to know, what was your part in these divorces? Which I thought, wow, what a great question, right?
I hope it wasn't the first date.
No, I don't
Was
think
it?
no, but
Okay.
but she,
That's a heavy question.
yeah, but and she goes, "You don't have to answer me right now, but I want you to think about it, and I'm going to ask you the question again later." And so, as I continue to, look at that, and I would like to be married again for sure.
Mhm.
But this time, I'm in this point in my life, I'm very cautious. I'm taking my time.
Mhm.
I'm working on myself. I went through probably close to 2 years of therapy where I
Mhm.
went to a therapist. And the very first time I went to a therapist, she said, "I want to know everything. I want to know all about your marriages." And I told her, and she goes, this blew my mind. She goes, "You pick needy women and gold diggers. Why is that?"
Oh.
And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa. And she goes, "We've got to find this out." And so I went through all this therapy, and she had me work on some stuff and change a lot of my thinking and come up with lists of qualities I wanted in a spouse and all this stuff. And so I'm working through all this, and there's a lot of work still that Gwyn can do to become a better man, a better person, a better human.
Well, it is the case with all of us. There's not a perfect person. We're all work in progress. There's all kinds of things we can find along the way that we can improve on.
Mm.
But I guess without, you don't have to give details, but during the sessions with this therapist, did you find what kind of you needed to work on?
Yeah. Yeah. And for some reason, really, we had talked about this, but I had a tendency, I'm such a nice guy. I really am a nice guy. That was nice of him to say,
Yeah,
but I think that I would actually look for women that I could help, like
help.
rescue and all that. And she's like, no, you got to quit doing that. You need to, she's like, why don't you date attorneys and doctors and women that own businesses? So I started going out with, a lot of nurses, and I
Yeah.
started going out with, I went out with some business owners and things like that. And so,
You want to help, you want to help people and you feel like you can help them be better and fix them. But the reality is, we know this, we have to fix ourselves and no one else can do it. But I have one of my sisters is a fixer too.
yeah,
And she's had relationships that didn't work out because of that. She wants to help people and she always goes for the one that's needy, like you said.
yeah.
So that makes sense to me too, Doug. I get it.
But one of the things that really helped me was when she said, you have homework for next week and you'll come back. She goes, I want you to list the 10 qualities that you want in your future spouse.
Nice.
And that took me, I really had to think about this and pray about it and work on it. And when I came back the next week, I had it. And I still have that list. It's sitting right over by my couch and it's laminated. And I look at that every morning when I wake up.
That's smart. I mean, you want to manifest what you really want, not just something that comes along.
Yeah.
Mark Rodriguez says, Doug, what advice would you give those of us who are in the dating scene?
Well, Mark, hey, it's good to see you. Mark's a good friend of mine. The one thing that I really would say that I just covered was, Mark, make a list of
Mhm.
the qualities that you want in a future spouse, whether it's 10 like I made, or Mark Victor Hansen. I can't remember. Ken Walls will tell you he made a list of like 900 things. I mean, I don't have time and the patience to go through and do all this, but I made the list of 10 things
Mhm.
that I would not, that I was not willing to, what shall we say? How do we want to say it? That I was not willing to, um, I guess,
Mhm.
not stick by. These are things that I'm not going
The
to.
non-negotiables.
Yeah, they're non-negotiables, and I've been, and you know what happened is really stopped dating for a long time.
Yeah.
Because what happens is I was dating the wrong women, and I would just be like, so now I look through my list and I'm like, okay, did she do this, and this? And, but finally I have a little friend of mine, a little female friend that, I'm really excited because I'm going to, on the May 26th, I'm going to the Philippines to meet my friend who I've known for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And we've been communicating, but because of COVID, we haven't been able to,
To actually meet.
meet.
Yeah.
And everything that's on my list, this woman has so far.
Um, Lona Ferguson says, so what led your father to marry your mother and what would he have told you? So what would your dad's advice would have been to you about finding the right partner?
Well, I know that when I was married before, and my father was alive, he was really good about not sticking his nose in your business. But there were times, I know, when my dad would call me and he's like, how are you doing? And you could tell my dad was he had such great
Mhm.
perception. He could perceive things. He was like, is everything okay? There were times when I was going through some really hard times, and
Mhm.
my dad was very perceptive, and I think he knew that I was having some hard times, and but he managed not to get his nose in my business, which was really good.
Yeah.
He never did that, but he wanted to let me know that he was always there in case I needed to talk to him. But my mom and dad were married 42 years. That's what was really amazing to me, is my parents were madly in love with each other. I never
Yeah.
saw them argue in front of us. 42 years, and then I've been I've done this 3 times, and so it's been hard because I'm like,
I
what
know.
am I doing wrong, and how can I've been so successful in business, and I have tons of friends, and have relationships with customers I've been dealing with for 25, 30 years. And I'm like, why can't I make this work with a woman?
Yes. And so
So,
this is what I think is super interesting and eye-opening for our listeners is this. You're so honest and you're so forthright in what you're saying that you have found it in so many areas of your life. But as far as love and a partner, relationship, a romantic partner, you haven't really found that. And it's okay that you're continuing to be on the path to figure it out. I just want to say one thing though. Lists, I believe, and I'm not a therapist and I'm not licensed to say this, but what I want to say is this. Yeah, lists are great as your non-negotiables and things like that. Like you should 100% not go for someone you need to fix. Right? At this point in our lives, we just want to be with someone that can bring joy and happiness in our life, and you can do the same. But sometimes if you go too close to the list, if someone doesn't check mark all the boxes, you may really miss a great person in your life, because you got to use your heart too, and you know that.
yes, yes.
I feel
But
it's really
yeah, I would say there's probably 2 or 3 things on that list that I'm not willing
bend on.
to bend on. And one of them is that my faith is so important to me that
Mhm,
really she's going to have to be the same
mhm.
faith I am, just because of it's such an important thing in my life. And I know that, that's one thing I won't.
I get it. I get it, and that's you're being true to you, so that's important. Bob Donnell says, "Who did you have to become in order to be the man you are today?" Oh, that's hey, this is Bob Donnell. He's the known for knowing all the right questions to ask, and that is amazing. So, what do you say about that, Doug?
That's a pretty deep
It
question.
is deep. I love it.
I think that by as you read my book and as you listen to these stories, and I just say, just working with my dad and seeing his integrity, his honesty, his fairness. I mean, honestly, my dad sometimes was more than fair. He was,
Mhm.
he always said, if it's not a good deal for everybody around the table, then it's not a good deal. But I saw him in a lot of situations where he actually gave up more than he should have.
Mhm.
He erred almost in, being so generous. But
Mhm.
by learning those things and applying them into my life of just treating everyone, listening, treating everyone with respect, with kindness, with love, and giving people opportunities at Little Giant, and just following my dad's example and leading in that way, by building people. That's how I became the man that I am today, is by following one of my heroes, my mentors,
Yeah.
but applying those things that I learned and doing what I saw him do. That's really how I continued that success with the company and with other companies and in other areas in my life, is by learning from him, but then applying those things and doing them in my life.
Yes. That's amazing. That was a great question, Bob, and I appreciate your answer. So, in your opinion, what holds people back from finding it? Which would be any of the things that we've talked about: wealth, success, love, joy, compassion. What do you think holds people back, Doug?
Confidence and fear of failure.
100%.
I just think that having grown up with a dad who, no matter what it was,
Mhm.
jumping on horses, jumping on cars, jumping on motorcycles, trying anything. I mean, there was nothing that my dad wouldn't try or wouldn't do, and just this no fear. I'm going to try this. I'm going to tackle this. I can do anything I set my mind to. Growing up in that kind of mentality,
Yeah.
really, with a guy like my dad, really set me on a course of success, because
Mhm.
he taught us there is nothing you can't do as long as you never quit and you give it everything you've got, and you don't give up ever, and you just ride it out. I mean, I remember, growing up, I raced motorcycles, dirt bikes,
Mm.
and my dad never got on me like, oh, if I finished first or if I finished fourth or whatever. he would just look at you and he would just, he expected you to do your best and
Yeah.
then to have fun. And that's what I tried to do, was just do what he did and give it your best, and just go along for the ride and have fun. And I had a lot of fun doing what I did at Little Giant. Just the experiences
Yeah.
and people, and we created this unique culture there that people, I mean, I walked through with Ken Walls a couple of weeks ago, and there are still people there that came up to me and that threw their arms around me
Aw,
and
'cause
said,
they knew your father.
"Hi, boss." And I'm like, "I haven't been your boss for 2 or 3 years." And they've got tears in their eyes, and
Aw, that's
I've got
amazing.
tears in my eyes. And um, just those kinds of relationships, the
Yeah.
money and all that stuff, it's
Ooh.
the people,
Yeah,
that
what layers of life did you have to peel back in order to find it? Bob is deep. I love that. But you know what, too? I'm getting a little off track, but I gotta go back to this. When you talk about fun,
Mhm.
I feel like in life, when we try to take things, when we don't try. I think in life we take it very seriously sometimes, to the point where you're trying to succeed, you're trying to find love, you're trying to find joy, all these things, but you're not taking time for actual fun, things that make you happy and like, you know what I mean? Even like the smallest things, like right now, no one cares if my house smells good. I have a candle going right here, you know? It's
Mm.
like I put perfume on because no one's going to smell it through the computer, but I can and I like it. Just like little snippets like that of that's not like fun, like candle and perfume's not fun, but my point is like little things in life that we can do to either have fun or bring us joy, fresh cut flowers, whatever it is. You and your dad and your mom and everybody, you guys went for it. You did it. And I kept thinking of this, and this is me because I'm corny. You guys didn't wait in the wings. You guys went for it. Your dad taught you, don't hesitate, take action. If you get an idea, go with it. And,
Oh, yeah.
highly successful people do that.
Yeah, I mean, Hal Wing would call me at 2 in the morning, and then I'd be like, "Hello," and he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I woke you up." He goes, "I've got a fantastic idea," He's like, "We need to jump on this right away." And I'm like, "Dad, can we talk about this in the morning?" And but he never slept too much. He was always just thinking, and
Hmm.
what if we did this, or what if we tried this, or he was just, I mean, this guy loved life. I mean, he would walk into my office at Little Giant and he's like, "What are you doing this afternoon?" I'm like, "Well, let me check my schedule." And he's like, "Well, clear your schedule." He's like, "Let's go on a motorcycle ride. Let's go out and ride the Harleys, and let's just." And
He
sometimes,
worked hard and he played hard,
yeah, and I would
right?
be like, "I don't know if I can." And I will tell you this about one of my ex-wives. She said, "Whenever your dad comes in and does that, you immediately drop everything you're doing, because there will be a day when your dad will be gone." And I do appreciate the fact that she would tell me that, because she was right. She's like, "This is more important than selling ladders or making this deal
Yeah.
or whatever." But so I learned I would keep like clothes at work, riding, because we had our cars and our motorcycles. And my dad would do this all the time. He would be like, "Let's go out in the desert and play on the dirt bikes right now or tomorrow or whatever." And
Yes.
man, I mean, I had so many good times with my dad. But you've got to learn to take time to do those kinds of things too. And sometimes entrepreneurs are so driven and they're like, "Let's make more money. Let's start this business. Let's do this and this."
Hmm.
And I think maybe that might be part of the reason why some of my marriages weren't as successful as they could have been, is because maybe I was too busy just working, 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 making more money. And I could have maybe, spend a little bit more time doing
Yeah.
this and that.
Well,
So you learn
nurturing
from
that,
those sides
yeah.
of it.
You learn, you live and you learn, but, uh, this is a question. How did your mother deal with all of that energy? Bikes are fun, but rather dangerous. How did she approach this?
Lana, great question. My mom never, ever once went and watched us race. because
That's how she handled it.
she
She
couldn't do it,
wasn't hurt and
right?
she didn't see it.
But she never said anything about it. And there were so many times that my dad got concussions. He was in the hospital. He knocked himself cuckoo. He got bucked off horses. My mom was so mellow and just took it all in stride. I don't know how she did it, but she was just a sweet lady.
Aw.
But she never got in my dad's way, and she supported him 100%. But
Yeah.
man, my dad was like, he was just like over the top. He was so driven. And like I said, no matter what it was, did it full tilt 100%, and he was all in. I
Yeah.
like that statement. He was all in. No matter what he did, he
All
was
in.
all in. He wasn't halfway. He wasn't, 70, 30, 80, 20. My dad was 100%, and you could count on him to do it over the top and with zest and
I love that. So
enthusiasm.
do
And
you think that according to aw,
that was me with speaking to those,
wow.
275 plus. And I'm telling you that police chief, I stood next to her, and she was like taller than me, and I thought, man, this lady could like kill me.
She could take you out and
Yeah.
not on a date. That's what we're talking about,
But
take you.
anyway, she was a powerful lady. I'll tell you, I didn't know what
Yeah.
to say.
Do you feel then with, like, since we're going in theme with the show, finding it, do you consider hi, Cannon.
Hey,
Hi,
Kenan.
Cannon. Do you consider the way you found it and find success and the way your father certainly did was just action, living his life all full throttle? And what advice, let me give it to this. What I have a question here on this. I want to know what advice you would give others on finding it. Like, what advice could you give us to help others find it?
That's a great question. I would say, you know, I think that people should find out what they really love, what they want to do, right? What brings them joy and happiness. Find out what not necessarily what somebody else tells you you're good at.
Yeah.
You got parents that are like, oh, you should be a doctor, Johnny, or you should be a lawyer or whatever. I think find out what you love to do and do it well. Just do it well. And if you enjoy it, you'll never work a day in your life, right? But
Mhm.
but do it well. But it just so happened that I ended up working with my father. I growing up, I wanted to do all the things that kids want to do, but I really wanted to be a broadcaster and be like on a sportscaster on
Yeah.
like to call basketball games and
And
football
for a
games.
shy kid, that's a very
Yeah, and
impressive
I could
job you
probably I
have.
could probably do that now, maybe if
Yeah, you could.
I got trained and stuff. But I ended up, following working with my dad, and I ended up liking it. I mean, not everything about it, but I thought, man, this is my dad taught me. He said, you're better off working for yourself than for someone else. And he showed me why, because you could take time off, and you had a lot more freedom and flexibilities. But I guess I would tell people, find out what you love, and not what your parents tell you you love, or your teachers or whatever, but find out what you really love, and then go out and do the best that you can at doing that, and be honest, have integrity, serve other people, and you will be wildly successful.
I believe you. I mean, you're a testament to it. You and your father, right? You are almost there now. Doug, I've heard you twice today and you are getting pretty good.
Well, that's very kind of you.
And Cannon says, how do you handle stress when it feels like it's all at once? Any tips to try to regulate that?
Great question, because there are a lot of times when you own a business or whatever you're doing, where it can get stressful. I mean,
Mhm.
we're coming off of one of the most stressful 2 or 3 years in the history of the world. You can't tell me that when people are locked down, when they have to wear a mask, when
Mm.
they're separated from other people, and they don't know where their next dollar is going to come from, or if they're even going to have a job, that people aren't stressed. You better believe it. This has been a stressful time,
Yeah.
um, in in um, in my in everybody's life. And so I would say this, like when I was growing up, and even today, there's things I do like every day. Make sure you exercise every day. I go to the gym for an hour a day. So find something you like to do as far as physical, sweat a little bit, make that a big priority in your life, because there's something about the endorphins
Mhm.
and when I work out, I wear earbuds and I listen to podcasts. I listen to tapes and things like that. So I say work out every day, make that a big part of your life, because you have to take care of the body. If you don't, and I will tell you,
True.
I learned this from my dad. My dad literally would be alive today had Hal Wing taken care of his body better. The guy slept 3 hours a night. He ate cheese and crackers sleeping in his station wagon, and he had to do that, right? But
Mhm.
could he have backed off maybe a little bit later and taken better care of himself? Absolutely, I think so, and he'd still be alive. So I say you've got to take care of your body, and you've got to take time for physical exercise, and then you've got to find hobbies that will help you to deal with stress. And like today, I went for a ride in a fast car. If I get stressed out, I might just go for a 45-minute ride, and I go fast. And there's something about it. Or I jump on my motorcycle at night, a Harley or something, and I go out. The sun's going down, and it's a beautiful cruise at night. And I come back and I'm refreshed. So find something like that where you can unwind
Mhm.
and clear your mind. But you definitely exercise is a big part of it.
Yeah,
And
I believe in that. I think that's really, really good advice, and to stay hydrated. But
yeah,
exercise for sure, the endorphins are just, I mean, it does help you get a jump start on your day. I love that. I would love for you to give us, to round this out tonight, Doug. I so appreciate you. I know you're a busy man, but, I would love for you to tell us what you're working on now, what your plans are, and do you have a 5-year goal, or are you pretty much just now just like loving it and just doing whatever? What do you got going on?
oh yeah, you've got to have goals. Let me tell you, if you don't have goals, daily goals.
Yeah,
So one of the things I learned, and Ken Walls is one of my he's done coaching with me, and people are like, you have a coach? Like, absolutely. You got to have a coach. Do you think that Tony Robbins or some of these other people don't have coaches? You bet they
yeah,
do. But here's the thing: every day I write down, and I only do 5, because I think if you make your to-do list too long, I have a goal to do 5 things every day. And then I have a goal of so I have 5 things I do every day, a to-do list. And then I have 5 of the things I'm grateful for, my blessings.
mhm,
Then I have a list of 5 of my desires that I want. And those desires, and one of them is that I want to be married again. And I list everything about this
yeah,
woman that I want to be married to. Every day I write this down. That's one of my desires every day. So you list your 5 things, but then you also have your yearly goals, and you got to have your 5-year goals and your 10-year goals and all that stuff. But
sure,
one of my goals, over the next 2 or 3 years, is to write more books, and I got a plan on how to do that, and to do some speaking. One of my goals is, once I get married again, is to serve 2 or 3 more missions for my church. That's one of
nice.
my long term goals.
I love that.
It's
So, look, the 5-year plan or sooner is to get Doug hitched. I can't wait. When
yeah,
you're engaged, I'm gonna have you back on the show so you can bring her and we can
yeah.
find out who this.
So you have all these different goals, and
Yeah.
you've got financial goals, you've got personal goals, you've got physical goals, fitness goals. Yeah, you've got financial things, you've got business, you've got all these different goals. You have to have goals, and if
Sure.
you and some of them are, oh, Ken was getting a phone call, but I mean, one of the goals I have is, even like, I've got cars I want. There's some cars I'm going to sell. There's some cars I want to buy. I mean, there's a car on there I want that is over $1 million, and it's on my
Mhm.
list.
Wow.
I'm
Are
gonna.
you gonna race that one on a
I'm
day
not,
where you need to
oh
take
no,
her car?
I don't race any of these cars. They're too nice. But
I know. So when you say you get in a car and you drive fast to help stress,
oh yeah,
that would
just
actually stress me out driving
yeah,
fast.
just no, just go up a canyon or something. There's Gold Canyon over here that I can go, and beautiful, curvy. I mean, not get crazy or anything, but just go
You're
through. And
not going Hal Wing, you're going Doug Wing level.
yeah, you're going
You're
down.
not going Hal Wing, you're
Yeah,
Doug Wing.
but
Crazy.
yeah, but and Ken's joking, but one of the cars that I want is over $1 million, and
Yeah.
I believe I'm going to have that car, I'm going to get
Yeah.
it. And so, is that a big deal? Is it important? Not really, in the grand scheme of things, because I'm not going to take it with me. We're not going to take anything with us. But the thing that we are going to take with us, that quote in the book, in the very back of the book, that says, Hal Wing says, none of the things that we have are going to be worth anything in the next life. It will matter, though, how we treat people, what we did with our lives, how we treated others, and those types of things. That's what's really going to matter, is who we are in here.
Oh,
Did I
100%.
help people? Did I bless people? And I have goals for that too. In fact, I have all these trusts set up right now, to where when I'm dead and gone, one of my goals is years after I blasted off, I want the things that I've worked so hard for in this life to bless other people. And so
Oh my gosh, Doug, I
I've got,
love that.
yeah, and I have all these trusts set up to where long after I'm gone, years and years and years, many, many years, maybe even 100 years, I'm still going to be blessing people and different organizations and my church and all these other things.
So can we say Joe Ingram says, so can we say that Doug has found it?
Well, I will tell you that I have found some things out
Sure
in
you have.
life, but there are other things that I still need to find out. And that learning and that finding out is a lifetime thing.
Journey.
Yeah, journey. And I hope to be doing that, let me tell you, my dad passed away at 72, and I would love to make it to 73, which I think I'm going to, because
Yeah.
I take a little bit better care of myself. But seriously, even into my 80s, if I happen to live in my 80s or 90s, there's still a lot of things that we can learn and do, and we can still bless people and help people
I love it. And
and
you
grow.
certainly do. And we appreciate you. And I just want to make notice again for all of the listeners. Len, if you could put the banner on again, but this is the current book. And you can find it at www.giantsuccess.com. And it was on the banner earlier going around. There we
There it
go.
is. Yeah,
Giantsuccess.com. And so I just want to say, yeah, hey,
I got to
Doug,
get over here.
how you doing?
Everything's opposite on the camera.
I
Debbie.
know. I always want to go the wrong way.
That.
But yeah, so thank you so much. Lynn, you can take that down. Thank you so much for being with all of us today and blessing us with your time. And I'm going to keep following you and staying in touch with you. And I can't wait till you find it. You find a wife, because that's on the 5-year plan. So I believe in you. And I know that there's someone out there that is going to just warm your heart and be a perfect partner for you. So thank you for helping us find it and sharing with us what you still are trying to find, because that's important, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to say anything else to close this down, Doug? I'd like your parting words.
Well, Debbie, let me tell you, I have really enjoyed. You are such a wonderful person, and to
Aw,
get to know you and Lynn, it's been a pleasure. These opportunities I have to talk about this book and about my life. I mean, I actually learn from you, learning from you, and in your situation, I'm so grateful. You're such a wonderful person. You're so
thanks,
kind.
Doug.
And I really appreciate our friendship and want this to continue for many, many years to come. Yeah.
Same here.
I once served, I'll tell you this, this is such a wonderful thought. I once served with this wonderful man in a church calling. He was, what we call a stake president in my church. And I was his executive secretary. So I was in a lot of meetings with him. And every time he would see me and he would leave, he would give me a big hug and he would say, "I love you." And, we call it, in church, we'd call each other brother and sister. He would say,
Sure.
brother Wing, I love you. And he would look at me before he left and he said, "You and I will always be friends forever and ever." And I never thought about that, but he said,
Mhm.
"What we have is very special. We will be friends forever." And to this day, I'm such dear friends with him.
Yeah.
But I thought about this, when we pass away and go into the next life, one of the things that we will take with us and we will see people again as our dear friends. And I never forget that, you know.
That is
Incredible.
yes. Yes. When you really think about what you I'll watch this on replay and I'll love to hear this over and over and over because it's true. And, you know, friendships like that are blessings. And when we go into the next life, I believe that will be with them again.
I promise you they will continue. And that's what he would say to me. He'd say, I love you. And you and I are going to be friends through the eternities. And I thought, wow, this is unbelievable, you know, and I never thought about that, you know.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I've listened to you a lot. I've never heard you share that. So I appreciate it. That's amazing. And Joe Ingram, Len, play You Got a Friend in Me.
You know,
Friend in me. I got it.
Joe
You got
is
a friend in me.
You know, Joe is he's a really good, he's got a good sense of humor, but he's a brilliant guy. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah, I think
But I
to
love
be funny, you have to be kind of smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
have
he's
to
super smart,
you
but
have
he's
that
always
look.
got
You have to be I know, he makes me laugh.
I bet in high school he was I bet he was
Oh,
something.
I bet he was like, I don't know, what would he be? Let's talk, Joe, what he would be signed in the yearbook as. Most likely to fill in the blank. What would it be, Doug?
I don't know, but
Do
when
a
I see him,
stand-up comedy?
I've never met him before, but I'll give him a big hug and tell him I love him.
Aw, well, we certainly love you, Doug. You're an amazing man. We're so appreciative to your time and all of the beautiful things that you share with the people around you and beyond. So, I thank everybody for watching today. And if I didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry, but I will look at them and I love you guys joining us. So with that, we'll have you back again, Doug. Much love to all. Keep finding it. And I'll see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Thank you.